When you're old, you don't sit around thinking about how great it is to be old. You sit around and think about what it was like when you were young. And when you get a bunch of guys together, this is what the conversation turns to a lot of times. Some variation of the basic premise, things were better. Things were better then. For these guys, just things were better. They were just better, that's all. The girls were prettier. The beer was colder. The music, it really meant something back then. The cars were better. It was cheaper to live. We had more freedom. On and on and on and on. I talk about the past, nostalgia for the past. And some of that past is real and some of it is enhanced. It's been enhanced by the passage of time. I want to talk about one of those things, which is this whole premise that cars were better back in the day. I'm 67 years old, and I've owned almost 130 cars, some of them trucks. And most of those cars are what would be considered classic cars. So, Chevelle Super Sport 396 4-barrel, Ford Mustang GT 390. Quite a few foreign cars. So I've got some experience in this area, and I also wrote about cars and the car business for 17 years as an automotive writer. So I have some experience in this area, and so were cars better back in the day? 50s, 60s, 70s? The short answer is no. They were not better. There were some cars that looked better than what we have on the road today. Some cars. There were plenty of ugly cars in the 50s and 60s and 70s, believe me. So there were some cars that looked better than what's on the road today, but overall, it's not even a close contest. I mean, cars back then, they were not as robust. They were not as mechanically refined. People forget. I guarantee, I could take a guy that raves about his 1967 Mustang, and he hasn't driven it since 1971, and put him in that Mustang now, and he'd be like, "Oh my God, this is scary." I mean, the steering is sloppy. I get a whole half turn before the wheels even turn up front. The suspension is not good. The brakes are awful. It's really loud inside the car. They wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like that driving experience. I'm not talking about driving around town at 15 miles an hour. I'm talking about being on the highway. They wouldn't like a stock 1967 Mustang like the one they had. So those old cars, they leaked. They leaked everything, man. They leaked everything. They leaked transmission fluid. They leaked coolant. They leaked engine oil. They leaked brake fluid. They leaked all the time. All the time. They had electrical gremlins. the basic wiring loom. I mean, it was primitive compared to today's car, but they still, had problems. I mean, that you couldn't fix, you couldn't track down. Carbureted engines, carburetors. Sure, you could adjust them, but then they'd get out of adjustment. You know, I mean that's what it was. So, drum brakes. Who's up for some drum brakes? Way, way less efficient than disc brakes. And when they got wet, those drum brakes, I mean, sometimes they were useless when they would get wet enough. Or if they got hot enough, if you were going down a mountain. Don't even get me started on horsepower. You know how these guys say, well, oh man, my Hurst Oldsmobile, it had 400 horsepower. No, it didn't. It had 400 gross horsepower, because that's the way horsepower was measured back then, gross, not net as it's measured now. So 400 gross horsepower, that might, you convert that to net, the flywheel, I mean, that could be as little as 270 horsepower. Easy. There are family sedans now, boring family sedans in 2025 that are faster than some famous muscle car names. Faster. 0 to 60, faster in the quarter, faster top end, everything. Safety? Oh my God. Those were death traps compared to cars now. I mean, they had no crumple zones in the steel structures. They had no steel beams in the doors. You have a head-on collision, you end up going through the windshield or getting impaled on the steering wheel. You've seen old movies where the car goes over a cliff and catches on fire, bursts into flames. Well, that happens sometimes because the gas, the fuel tanks were not as puncture proof as they are now. It didn't happen as much as you see in the movies, but it happened. It would happen sometimes in a bad on the road collision. A car would catch on fire. So, all this stuff here. These guys, they talk about the old days, the old cars. Oh, they were great, they were great, they were great. They were great to look at. Hey, I owned a lot of them, and I loved them. But were they better than the cars now? No, it's not even a contest. Most cars, the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were all used up before you got to 100,000 miles. Completely used up. Not just the mechanical bits. I mean, the interior parts, sun damage, the little graphics on the pull, on the pull instruments for the lights and stuff. They'd all be rubbed off. The seat frames would be broken. I mean, they were all used up. The car was almost junk if you could get it to 100,000 miles. And now cars go to 200,000 miles easy. Even a basic economy car will go to 200,000 miles as long as you take care of it. 300,000 miles is nothing. It's nothing. It's not even that noteworthy. You just, nod and say, oh, that's great. And that is not what used to happen. And I'm sure you got an uncle or something, says, oh, my little grocery getter, my little, 66 Chevrolet Nova, it's got 280,000 miles on it, and it's a great little car. Well, okay, yeah. But that's 1 out of a million. That's a unicorn. I'm telling you, the cars did not last very long. I was there. I own these cars, and when these guys start talking like this, I'm just like rolling my eyes, going, "Come on, man, come on, get a grip. Let's get back to reality here." So anyway, that's one myth deconstructed for today.